and a huge warm welcome to my guest today, Hannah Hagon, who I'm really excited to chat to about her movement, Unplugged Tots. But first, let me tell you a little about our guest. Hannah is an educator, author, and founder of Unplugged Tots, a movement inspiring families and educators to rediscover the power of screen-free play and genuine human connection, which I love. Her work is at the intersection of early childhood education and computational thinking, blending academic insight with hands-on experience to show how unplugged learning nurtures creativity, curiosity, and critical thinking from the very start. Hannah has co-authored academic research on computational thinking and unplugged approaches, collaborating with leading educators to explore how low-tech, playful learning builds future-ready skills. She is also an author of Unplugged Tots, published by Raspberry Pi Press, a book designed to help teach the core concepts behind coding to preschool-aged children and to have a bit of fun while they're doing it. Just like learning an additional language, the process of learning digital skills has numerous, it's because we're talking about numbers, has numerous benefits for children as well as parents, teachers and caregivers, including improved communication, greater confidence, and perhaps the most important skill of all, the ability to learn from failure. The mission of Unplugged Tots is a heartfelt one that invites parents and caregivers to slow down, reconnect, and rediscover the simple joy of play in a fast-paced digital world. I think this is such a current topic, and I'm really excited to explore more with you. So please join me in welcoming Hannah to the Recap podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you very much for a very kind introduction. It is absolutely wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your insights on this really important topic. I think digital literacy, understanding computational thinking, and especially in an early years context is so important. And it's something that parents really do want the advice and support on. So I'm really keen to get stuck into this today. So just to kind of kick us off, what inspired you to start Unplugged Tots? Was there a kind of an initial thinking around it, an experience that sparked the idea? Where did it come from?
So I'm going to tell you a story.
Tell me a story.
Are you sitting comfortably? So it started back in 2018, and my husband is a very keen developer, techie, and he uses these things called Raspberry Pis. So they're like a little credit card sized computer, basically. And the whole ethos behind Raspberry Pi was to try and get children into tech and computer science when they're kind of at university level, to kind of get the children into it so that you're kind of building that pipeline. So there's this whole kind of company that is trying to get people and children into tech. So you've got the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which is kind of the charity arm of it. And they're all over the world now. They do these coder dojos. I mean, the whole company is kind of expanded. And then you've got the trading arm, and they're now floating on the stock market. It's been around for about 13 years. And back in 2018, there was a festival, and my husband said, come on, let's go and have a family day out. I thought, all right. And my children at the time were 2 and 4. We went along to this festival in Cambridge, and it was literally just a day out for me and the girls, just to kind of follow him in his little passion, do you know what? It was lovely because the girls were just absolutely amazed. There were early iterations of 3D printers, there were robots, there were like wearable technology, light up, like wearable things, and 2 and 4. Sensory overload.
Amazing.
Brilliant. I mean, I was quite excited as well, It's brilliant. And then we got to an area where they were looking at Scratch, which is a block coding platform. Obviously, at 2 and 4, I mean, my eldest was just starting to kind of form letters and things like that, but they couldn't properly read. They couldn't read the instructions. They couldn't type because they couldn't identify the letters. So there was a barrier to their learning. And my mama bear came out. I was so angry on their behalf that there was this barrier to them being able to learn these things. And I knew from my tech background in corporate that tech is here to stay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was build this bridge between the children needing these skills, but actually meeting them where they are, which is getting messy, having fun, using their bodies to learn, getting outside and actually doing something that doesn't involve sitting behind a screen. And that is why I kind of started Unplugged Tots. It was purely for my children. And I was kind of doing this alongside working. I then took on a chair of governor's role at the local school. So it's all, juggling all of these things and whatnot. So things kind of took a little bit of a back seat with Unplugged Tots, but then COVID hit and everything went online. And again, this whole kind of nuance of trying to get my own children off of a screen when they're trying to learn. And I just thought, I can create videos. I know it's like, I'm using the very thing that I'm trying to get people off of, but it's a way of communicating how we can play with our children without using screens. And so I did a load of videos with the girls during lockdown and showing, how to do like repeating patterns with blocks and things like that, and how to actually engage our children with physical play that actually teaches them computational thinking at the same time. So you're blending all sorts of different learning opportunities, activities, you're looking at collaboration, you're looking at communication, you're actually allowing children to listen and to articulate and to think about things for themselves before we leap in and fix things for them or something, So yeah, it's been a massive journey, a massive learning curve, because the other thing, Lucy, that I really wanted to focus on was I wasn't just a mum doing this because I love my children. I wanted to also quantify some of this stuff, which was why I co-authored a few academic articles. We actually did active research to actually understand how children are able to use these activities to, do pseudocode and things like that with floor robots. So it wasn't just, a mum with a passion. It's actually, I'm a mum with a passion, but there's some science behind it as well. And that's really critical for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, and I've said this to people before, I think some of the biggest movements and some of the biggest changes that we have in society are driven by passion, and they're driven by lived experience. You kind of need that anger, that frustration to fuel the fight that you need to make a change. But I really love that you bring that scientific research into it, because I think that is really important to make that change something that people can buy into, because there's evidence of what you're doing, and there is evidence not only that you have taken the time to understand the problem, but also there's evidence on the action behind what you're doing as well. And I love that element of the work that you do, and I think it makes it really important and accessible for a lot of people. What makes it a movement rather than just an idea, a program, something that you're doing?
I think because, you touched on it earlier, it's quite a nuanced subject at the minute, the whole kind of digital literacy, screen use, things like that. And I think we are at this point in society where we've just got used to screens being this electronic babysitter, rightly or wrongly. And I think that's one of the things that I do want to caveat is every family has a totally different dynamic. And there are sometimes reasons that we are using screens. My children are now 12 and 10, and their homework is on a screen. I can't get away from it, and I don't want to necessarily get away from it. What I want to do is, without judgment, support people in using screens in a balanced, intentional way. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this being a movement rather than just a program. It's a cultural shift, in that we have this opportunity to embrace technology and use it for what it is, a tool, rather than just use it as a default entertainment option, because that's not the best use of technology. when we can curate and nurture the skills that our children have with communication, with collaboration, with being really, really good humans, and then we nurture the skills that they should be receiving at school or in their education settings around digital literacy, around AI, around using technology for good, and thinking about it in terms of how we can represent the best parts of our society and be sustainable and all of this. When we merge those two worlds together, we can create something truly, truly amazing. But if what we do right now is just have screens as the default mode of entertainment or the default mode of learning, we are missing out on so much. And our children are missing out on so much because they're not giving the opportunity to learn from each other, to make those mistakes on their own, and to avoid, to actually not take the risks. And then we are, where would we be? We have an opportunity to curate the problem solvers of tomorrow. But if we don't allow them now to fix problems in terms of let's build a wrong repeating pattern sequence, if they don't know how to behave, if they don't know how to fix those problems, 20 years down the line, we are not going to have people that are going to solve problems for us. And it's that kind of thing that makes what I'm doing a movement. It's a whole, it is this intersection of parenting, of education, of children's mental health and well-being that I'm kind of focusing on. And it's not just a program, it is a movement.
Absolutely. I think it's really important, isn't it, to consider the fact that, as you said at the beginning, technology is not going away. If anything, it's just getting more and more part of our lives, part of our working lives, part of our social lives, entertainment and things like that. And I think from my observation, there's kind of two camps of people that really embrace it and people that want to kind of step away from it as much as possible. And I think there's a balance, isn't there, between, as you say, using it for good and using it and equipping our young people with the skills that they are going to need in the future, they are going to need in the workforce. I think it's really important to acknowledge the importance of equipping our children with the skills that will make them thrive as adults as they go in. The technology will be part of their workforce a lot more than it was part of ours when we finished school. So I think it is really important to embed those skills young. But what I love about this is that it takes it right back to the basics. And we know, when we think about how children learn to write, we don't just give them a pencil or a crayon. We work on their fine motor skills first, because they're the muscles that they need to then be able to grasp that implement, to then make those marks. So what you're doing, taking it back to those real core skills that then they can develop into those technological digital skills going forwards. And it's observing that fact of the importance both in the home and within the school or educational setting that young person is in. So I think you've got a really good balance there, and I think that's really showcased in the work that you're doing. Do you think your role as a parent, as a mum, has really influenced the way that you approach screen-free play and learning in that way?
Absolutely. So from my background in tech, so I was in legal tech for too many years. And I think as part of that, I saw there's a bit of an echo chamber of thought. There was a lack of cognitive diversity where there wasn't enough opportunity for proper representation of thought or skills or experience. And then as a mum of girls, I just wanted doors to be opened to them so that if they took on a role in whatever sector they chose, there would be doors open. I think that's a big thing for me, is making sure that there are people out there who are role modeling the kind of roles that we need people to see, because it's very difficult for the youth of today to see or to try and be what they can't see. It took some guts to kind of do this kind of path that I'm on, but I also wanted to show them that if you believe in something so passionately, you have to take that risk. I'm telling you, the children to do it themselves. I have to model this myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's been, there's times where it's been hard, but they have believed in me every step of the way. And the whole thing with the book, you know, they actually drew some of the doodles on the front cover of the book, and that's included.
Oh, wow.
Mentioned and stuff, because it's, you know, it all started because of them. I would like to think it makes me a bit more relatable as a kind of a founder or a CEO, whatever, that I, you know, this is born from a passion, and it's born from the love of my girls.
I love that. And again, you hear that a lot from parents who then go and embark on building something, whether that's a movement, a company, an empire. You know, it's doing it for the sake of their children, but not just for the sake of their children, but for everybody's children, you know, making that difference. So what are some of the benefits of hands-on learning? Why is it so important for our young people to have hands-on learning?
I think the biggest thing are the giggles. Whenever I do community programs or anything like that, the air is filled with giggles and laughter, and there is absolutely nothing better than a kid laughing, in my opinion.
Oh, agree.
You know? And in this world where, frankly, Lucy, it can be a bit heavy, can't it?
Yeah.
Right now.
Mm-hmm.
We all need a little bit of laughter. We all need a bit of light relief. And I think that when we are laughing, we're relaxed, we're more receptive to actually being able to learn things. Because when we're laughing, we're connecting with people. It may not be your parents or caregivers. It may be teachers. It may be other people in our community, and we're learning through so much. We're learning through osmosis of how to behave, of how to act. We're learning maybe numeracy, literacy. We're learning how to communicate with people. You know, in this world of AI, where we're talking to computers, it's really, really nice to talk to people, because that is who we are. We are human beings, and we need to talk to people, and we need to know and nurture those skills within our children so that they can kind of grow up and be confident enough to talk to people. So fun and laughter are kind of top of the list. I think also, for me, it's just watching children like blossom and grow, because when they, one of the research projects that I did with a wonderful woman called Dr. Val Critton, and this was for our most recent article with the Open University, we did a research project, 6-week research project with a group of reception children. There was a little girl there who she had quite severe special needs. She wouldn't engage with us at all. And I think for the first 3 weeks, she kind of watched us from a distance and was quite cautious. And then by the end of by the very last session, so we did kind of 3 sessions within one morning. By the very last session on the last day, she'd sat with us for the whole 3 sessions and wouldn't want to leave us. She gave us a hug when we left, and she grasped each and every single concept, because she was stood there for the first 3 weeks and just watching us, watching all of the other children, her peers, like engaging with us, you know, looking at what they were doing, realizing that we weren't, you know, scary outsiders. We were actually, you know, there to have fun and things like that. And she got every single concept that we were trying to get across. And it's those kinds of things. It's that transformation that I love seeing within children when, you know, they might be nervous, they might be a bit scared of new people, but by doing what I do, I am meeting children where they are, not necessarily where they're supposed to be. And I think that's what we need as an education system on the whole, is this idea of, hang on, let's just stop and think about what the needs of the children actually are, because not every single child is on that same trajectory. So I think, fun, laughter, and meeting the kids where they are kind of quite high on my list.
I think as well, when it comes to that hands-on learning, like for me, I learn so much better and quicker if I can get stuck in and do something, rather than if I'm watching a video about something, or if I'm reading about something, or somebody is just verbally telling me. If I can have a go and get stuck in myself, that learning embeds a lot quicker for me. And I've spoken to many families and witnessed lots of different children in a similar sort of way. So I wonder if that element of the hands-on learning as well is great for young children to just be able to pick things up and to really embed that learning as well.
Yeah, it's called embodied cognition. So it's where you use physical movement, sensory exploration, like these kind of fine and gross motor skills. So you're actually using your body to explore learning. So one of the brilliant examples that I have is my little one, Emily. She was about 6 at the time, and she climbed a tree. And boy, did she climb that tree. She went up so high. And I was like, really? Emily, okay. I'm coming down now, please. But, that was what I was thinking in my head. But actually, I left her to it. I mean, I was obviously watching her.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to just sit on my hands, keep my mouth shut, and let her work this out for herself. She could get up, fine, no problem. But it was, how can I get down now?
Yeah.
And it's only when you're in that situation and you've got that, you're looking down, you can see the ground is so far away. But that is embodied cognition in process, because you're like, oh, now I get it. Now I see why Mum said don't go up so high, because now I am too far away for Mum to come and rescue me. I need to work this out myself. And it's those kinds of risky learning, the hard fun that our kids need to be able to know where their boundaries are in terms of risk. She still climbs trees, not quite so high. But it is knowing what your limitations are in terms of physical and in terms of mental. It's like, well, actually, I've achieved that thing, and I got down, and I was safe, and I didn't end up in hospital with a broken wrist or a broken arm or anything, which is brilliant. But she did that herself. And that embodied cognition is totally what our kids need. Sitting down and, either behind a screen or with paper, whatever, is not conducive to a great experience for learning for some of our children. Having the ability to get up and about and play through movement is what our early years children need. And, sitting down is absolutely fine, because some of my stuff is kind of crafty and sitting down based, but it goes back to what I said earlier about meeting children where they are. They are not, but they're not sitting down type people yet, and that's, I think, where it is. But no, I love this whole embodied cognition, because it totally meets the children where they are, gives them agency, it empowers them to make their own decisions, which is exactly what we want.
Yeah, and that feeling after they've achieved it by themselves and they know that they've worked it out, and this kind of really aligns with the whole risky play ethos of giving that safe space to explore risk in a safe way. I am a parent of a child who was also a tree climber, so I totally get where you're coming from, and it is that point of going too far and then going, I've got a bit high. If Mum can't reach me, now I've got to work this out. And as much as you can kind of verbally give them instructions to come down whilst trying to remain calm and not like you are absolutely panicking inside thinking. And she was a gymnast as well, so we had many hospital visits. Oh no. And that's probably why she liked climbing trees. She was very much like, let's just get my body involved in things. When she was 16, she was diagnosed autistic and ADHD, and I think that really embodied why she needed movement so much as a young child. But I love this idea of embodied cognition. I'd not heard that term before, and I think that really explains a lot. That's fascinating. I want to talk about guilt, because I think there is a lot of guilt around screen time with parents and educators. And especially if you're unsure or you don't have a lot of experience or knowledge around digital literacy yourself. And that can bring a lot of guilt as a parent, especially if you are having to use it for entertainment purposes, if you're juggling lots of things. And, you know, we're not here to throw guilt on anybody. But how can we support that with our parents, and what conversations should we be having around getting more of a balance around that?
So I think, first of all, media and other parents are not helping us in terms of this feeling of guilt and this feeling of shame and this whole sense of judgment. And it goes back to what I said earlier about each family dynamic is unique. And I think it's unfair to cast our own judgment over someone else's family, because it's not conducive to actually building a society that we want our children to see. So I'm all for banning the guilt and banning the shame and banning the judgment. And what I try and do is say, you know, cut yourself some slack, because you're working hard. And the fact that you're feeling guilty means that you actually want the best for your child anyway.
Yeah.
What I really try and demonstrate is the fact that there are different types of screen use. And it's, have you heard of Dr. Fiona Aubrey-Smith?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. So she is a wonderful education expert. And she basically came up with the kind of, there's three different areas of screen use. There's the consumption, where you're basically doom scrolling, you're just watching, you're just consuming something. You're not really taking it in. It might just be on in the background. Then the second one is where you've got a little bit of interaction. Maybe you're using something like Times Tables Rockstars, or like some of the CBBC games. You know, so there's a little bit of kind of thought process, but you're actually interacting with the screen. You might also be like talking to a family member via screen and things like that. So there's like an interaction with the screen. You're not just consuming it.
Yeah.
And then the third one is where you're doing something. You're actually critically thinking about something within the screen. So you might be using Scratch, or some of these things like in Purple Mash have coding applications. So you're actually using your brain to think. You're thinking logically. You might be using algorithms, or you might be thinking about sequence of steps. So you're using this kind of computational thinking themes,
right,
to actually interact with the screen on a much more intellectual level. Mm-hmm. So I think as a parent, having a mix of all three uses for a screen is absolutely fine. What I think we need to do is just be intentional about our screen use. So if we are intentional about our screen use, it means that we are being aware of what our children are doing on screens. And it's not something where they have to be, you know, in a different room doing something. Get involved, sit beside them, use it as a focal point. Don't, you know, it's not something to be like ashamed of or shameful of. It's a way to actually help our children and use them for that purpose. But it's I know it's hard because I've got children myself, and sometimes I just got to cook the dinner. You know?
Yeah.
But it's these like little snippets, and I try and say to parents, what I really would love to see is it's screen-free play first, then screens later.
Right.
So we're just balancing this screen use. So it's, I don't know, a quick card game, a quick, like, I don't know, build a Lego maze or something. So we're actually letting our children play. And you say it's, oh, just do 5 minutes on this. It ends up being 15, then half an hour, then an hour, because the kids get so engrossed in it because they haven't thought of all of these dopamine hits that they get when they're looking at screens. They've got the dopamine hits from creating this, I don't know, Lego maze or Lego mansion or whatever. And that's what we need to be doing. It's about making screens not the default. The default is this wonderful richness of play and craft and amazing things that you have around your house anyway. You just do, because you get given stuff for Christmas and birthdays, and you know, it's just let's it's I think it's about habit forming as well, because I know it's hard, and I know it's difficult when homework is on screens. Just say, or just stay on there for another 15 minutes, but it's about us shifting and knowing that for a little bit of short-term pain, the kids will get so much more long-term gain out of, creating with bits and pieces. I've got to show you this Lego maze that Emily built, because awesome, and it's one of my favourite things that I wrote about in the book. So you have a maze, and then you put a marble through, and it makes the most amazing noise, and you direct it around this maze. Okay. And, it took us kind of half an hour, but then you can say to them, well, actually, let's make one wall particular colour, let's make another wall a particular, and then you start, and then they just make their own world up from this. But it's that kind of thing. We need to facilitate some of their play first. If the default has always been screens, we need to step in. And I know that I can say this because I'm a playful parent, and I know that there are parents out there that really despise play and just don't know what to do. And that is part of the purpose of my book. It's a way to provide parents and caregivers with suggestions of activities to do when we literally have nothing in the tank. So it's that kind of thing. But I really feel that as a society, we should stop this whole judgment on screens, because we never know what's going on in a family, and it's unfair. We should just be allowed to have the freedom of choice and not feel so judgmental and feel so judged about it.
I think as well there's the element of we are learning as well as parents. We're not all tech experts. We've grown up in a world where tech wasn't there, and tech moves so fast, doesn't it? It moves at such a rapid pace. So as parents, we are navigating this firsthand as well. So I think there needs to be an element of allowing us to learn this process. And while they're learning, there needs to be that balance of, okay, I need to get X, Y, and Z done. So now we're going to have some screen time, whether that's in whatever format. You've just explained kind of the different types of it. But I think we need to allow ourselves to acknowledge the fact that we are learning this, and we're having to learn it at incredibly fast pace. So I think books like yours are really useful, because it gives parents a kind of go-to when, as you say, there's nothing else left in the tank. We don't know where we're going next. And for those parents that, don't have a lot of experience with play, or it doesn't come naturally. And there are many parents where that happens. I've done research recently with parents of autistic children, and that was a comment that came out from a number of parents is, I don't know how to play. So we take that for granted, that play is just play, but actually it's quite a complex thing when you break it down, and there are so many different elements to play. So it's not really just a case of, just play with your child. Well, actually sometimes you need a bit of direction with that, and there is no shame in that, and there shouldn't be any shame in that. So I love that your book gives this kind of go-to of, let's try this. Can you give us an example of a kind of an unplugged activity that parents can do? I know you've touched upon like the Lego maze and things like that, but
oh my goodness. So I did a book talk last week, my very first one, and I got asked that question. And I said it's really, really difficult, because I think a lot of it does depend on what my energy levels are. When the girls used to get home from school, it'd be like snack, cuddle, and little chit chat, and then we'd kind of regroup, and they would kind of direct a lot of the play. If I've got quite a lot of capacity, and I'm not afraid of a bit of mess, then one of my favourite ones is my icing a biscuit activity. Okay. And I like it because I like biscuits, frankly.
If ever there was a better reason to do it.
Exactly. But also it allows our children the creative freedom to kind of decorate these biscuits themselves. So there's not this kind of creativity angle. But before that, we've got an opportunity for the children to make their own icing. So that allows for weighing out tablespoons of icing sugar, weighing out water, identifying what objects we need to use to create this icing. And you can kind of go a little bit rogue where you can put everything on the kind of the kitchen counter and actually ask them, do we need a knife? Do we need a spoon? Do we need a hairbrush? Do we need a toy car? And they're like, no. But that is deconstruction. That is one of the core computational thinking themes. They're removing objects that they don't need for this particular task.
Right.
And then what we have is the opportunity for children to create the icing. So what is the sequence of basically the method of creating icing for icing a biscuit? And so you've got like an algorithm of equipment, you've got your sequencing of events, and then you have your debugging element. So your icing is, let's say it's too thick. So you as the adult, spread this really thick, horrible, hard icing on the biscuit. The biscuit breaks, you end up in a mess. Oh no, what can I do? So you model the kind of questionings, and it's all kind of laid out in the book. So you model the questioning, and then the idea is, we need to make it more runny. How do we make it more runny? By adding more water. So then the child has to add a bit more water, and you say, do we add the whole jug? Do we add just a tablespoon or a teaspoon at a time? Let them work it out. They are debugging in action then. And then you've got the perfect consistency of icing. And coming up to Christmas, I love doing the get the gingerbread outlines. The gingerbread men outlines. Yeah. The icing on, and you do the little kind of glacé cherry for Rudolph's nose. So you can kind of bring in the sequencing in terms of that. So let's say you've got your biscuit, you've then got your icing. Then what do you put on top? The nose and then some eyes. Can you put the nose and eyes on before you put the icing on? No, you can't, because the icing is what makes it all stick. So then you're looking, if as this kind of whole activity progresses, you've got algorithms, you've got sequencing, you've got debugging, you've got sequencing again. But you're getting your child to be creative. They don't even realize they're learning some of these skills. They have no idea. All they know is they're creating a biscuit that they're going to chomp down later, That's the beauty of it. So that's if I've got like time and energy, and you don't need patience. You don't actually need a lot of energy. It's just time. But I mean, I loved spending time with the girls, and that's what it's all about. Because you see these children grow. And I did this at a Christmas camp at one of the local schools, and these kids just loved it. Sticky fingers, but then you have a bowl for washing up. Everything is fixable, It's not all about kind of mess or anything. But if I'm kind of low on energy and I just wanted the girls to do something, the Lego maze was particularly good because it's something that they could do themselves, and I could literally sit there with a cup of tea and just direct if I needed to. Have you got time for one more?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because another one for high energy is my butterfly painting. I don't think I've got an example where basically we're looking at sequencing of a butterfly. So you've got one piece of A4 paper, you draw the outline of a butterfly wing on one side, you put splodges of paint on one side, fold the paper over, peel it to reveal a perfectly symmetrical butterfly. But again, you're looking at sequencing, you're looking at creativity, you're looking at debugging, because when we first did it, I didn't put enough paint on, so the paper stuck together.
It didn't work. Yeah.
It's all of these things. It's like, oh no, it didn't work. Let's try again. Yeah. And it's this action of modeling those behaviors when things don't go according to plan. And then the children take on that. They don't throw a tantrum. They don't, well, I mean, sometimes did. They don't throw a fit and, things like that. But it is that whole allowing them to experience this for themselves and to grow and to learn resilience and this growth mindset that we need our children to have. Because if they don't fail now, then how are they going to be when they hit teenagers, hit puberty? If they've not learned how to cope, then it's going to be interesting when they hit their teenage years.
Yeah. And that was actually going to be my next question around failure. Why is it important to fail? And you've touched upon it there. And I think I hear it a lot from all different walks of life, whether it's an educational based company, whether it's a huge multi-million-pound company. Everyone talks about how important failure is, and how I think Stephen Bartlett, I remember seeing he shared something on LinkedIn, and he had like a head of failure or something. He actually had a job role for it, to people to actively do things wrong to then learn from it. And I think that is really important. And it's great to hear you talk about that failure element within the learning that the children are doing in the activities that you're talking about. And it really resonates when you're talking about kind of the different skills behind as the children are learning. It really resonates with what home educators do with their children, and how they kind of look at, for example, a cooking activity, but then it doubles up as a maths activity because they're talking about different shape, space, measure and things like that. You know, going out to the supermarket to get your bits for dinner, but actually you learn X, Y and Z. Well, when you're doing that, because there are so many learning opportunities for it. I didn't even consider the kind of computational skills that could be associated with these sorts of activities. And as you described, especially the gingerbread man, as you described all of the different elements, it's like, of course, it makes perfect sense. And actually, there is the process. It's the processes, isn't it? It's not, you know, I'm going to learn how to code something, but actually it's how your brain works in that coding type process to then later down the line apply it in a technological sense, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I try to do. So the idea of the book is each chapter is defined by the computational thinking themes of deconstruction, pattern recognition, algorithm sequencing, logic. But within each chapter, the last activity, so it's 3 activities per chapter, the last activity is always a debugging activity, because it is so important to show our children how to debug, how to... I was having a chat with someone, I can't remember when it was, but she said that she uses the term fail spectacularly. So it's almost like a celebration, failure, like, you know, celebrate failure, because what you're doing is you're retraining your brains to think, well, I'm just going to try anyway because I want to fail spectacularly. Because failure is feedback at the end of the day.
Yes, yeah.
No, something has worked or hasn't worked. It's so important for us as adults to not jump in straight away when we see these kind of early warning signs from our children that something's not quite going as according to plan. Actually stepping back and letting them work things out themselves. And it's difficult. It is hard because, you know, we've got to get out the door, we've got things to do, place to be.
Yeah.
But if we keep stepping in, when we're doing our children a disservice by fixing things all the time for them, because they're not having the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and it's active learning, isn't it? They need to actively go through that process to find their own ways of debugging, as you say, which I think is a great term to use for this. But I completely agree with this whole concept. And even kind of from a research perspective, we don't have to always get it right in research. We don't always have to have a positive outcome, as long as we talk about what failed. As long as we talk about it and we explain and we learn from it and we find ways to try again, doing something different. And that was something I really had to learn early on, because when I first kind of came into research, I was always looking to fix something or to provide a solution. And actually, sometimes the failure is what you need to see to get to that solution. So it's really important to acknowledge that. So I think failure works in everything that we do as humans, and it is really important. Have you had a lot of feedback on the book? It's out now, isn't it?
It's out now, yeah. It came out in September in the UK and is out currently in America and Canada. And the feedback has been amazing. They've got
good,
5-star reviews on Amazon. Educators, parents, home educators are lapping it up. And I think one of my standout quotes was, "It's a 21st century toolkit for parents," and it is.
Okay.
It is, because it's the Raspberry Pi team who did all the design work have done a beautiful job, because it's really, really accessible for children, for adults, and for educators in terms of like the layout and the comic strip vibe as well. It's just really It's just so bright and colourful, and that's what I really liked about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, bright, colourful, illustrated books tend to be reserved for our children, and it's actually nice as an adult to see one like that. It's
so funny you say that, because one of the reviews that I had was my only downside. The only downside to this book was the pictures weren't big enough.
Oh no!
I can take that. That's fine. It's just they've done an absolutely amazing job.
What would you say to any parents that feel like it might be too late to make any of these changes?
No. Never, ever too late. So my work kind of starts from 2.5 years old, but I've got, I know that there's 10-year-olds reading this book as their bedtime reading. I have worked with 15-year-olds. I've worked with 18-year-olds. Absolutely not too late. And actually, one of the funniest things is I've had a few people come up to me and say, my husband or my wife is a software developer, and they are reading this book cover to cover and realizing why I do things that way, or this explains things in a totally different way. And there is no age limit on screen-free play, and I think that's the thing that I really, really want to get across is, despite however many birthdays you've had, you can still play, and you can play screen-free.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, just to close out, there's a lot of information that we've spoken about today, and it can be quite overwhelming coming into a topic that you're not particularly familiar with. So is there just one small thing that someone can do and take away from today to start their journey into a more unplugged play way of life?
I think the easiest thing is to take a piece of paper, 2 different coloured pens, and draw alternating circles with those different coloured pens and say, this is a repeating pattern. Get your child to copy it underneath and get them to continue the repeating pattern. Then bring in a 3rd colour and get your child to create their own repeating pattern.
Right.
And then you copy that repeating pattern, but you make a mistake. Say you've got red, blue, red, blue, red, blue is your first line. Then you've got red, blue, yellow, red, blue, yellow, red, blue, yellow. Then you've got red, blue, yellow, blue, red, yellow. Make sure I got that right. And then get your child to say, oh, you've made a mistake there. And then you model that behaviour. And so that can be the start of your Unplugged Tots journey.
Amazing. I love how simple that is as well. And I think people can have that misconception of it's too complex, I don't even know where to begin. And actually that's where you begin. It's as simple as that. And you can just go from there and get the book, and the book will take you through the rest of the journey. Amazing. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise in this area. I think you have done an amazing job with really simplifying such a complex thing in our everyday lives as parents. So I'm really excited to see where this journey takes you. I'm sure this is not the last that we hear from you. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Oh, Lucy, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.